The movie starts with him dying, and we watched it for 2 hours just like, I know what this guy's going through. This is a movie about marriage and how hard marriage is.
All right, we thought we'd start with a little laugh, huh? Was that funny? That guy's pretty funny. Well, welcome to LW Marriage. I almost said Marriage Matters. Talking about the silent treatment. My wife, she yelled at me the other day. She did. She just looked at me and she says, man, you just aren't listening to me. You never listen to me. And I thought, what an odd way to start a conversation. I didn't. Silent treatment, sorry. Hi, I'm Jeff. This is my wife, Kay.
Hello.
And I'm Baltimore, and this is my wife, Chelsea.
Yay.
Check.
And we're leading LW Marriage this year, the four of us.
Yes.
So, yeah, a little bit new. Well, we want to welcome our online audience. I think we're live right now. Oh, yep, the light just changed. We're good. We're live. So welcome if you're watching from online. We've got people watching all over. We've got background music. Huh? Is this like first class?
He's so excited.
I am excited. I'm excited. All right, first time. How many people we got here never been to LW Marriage before? A lot, quite a few.
Sweet.
Yeah, well, thanks. Not you. All right, I'm going to tell you what's going to happen tonight so that you don't have to sit here and wonder. First of all, we're going to have you all come up front, line up, and give your personal testimony. No, I'm just kidding about that. No, what we're going to do tonight, we're going to have some announcements here. We're going to have door prizes. Oh, Roger, where's Roger? Oh, he's got them. All right. Did everybody get a ticket when they came in? Because we got door prizes. If you don't have a ticket, you don't have a chance to win. If you don't have one, raise your hand. We'll get you a ticket because we're going to have that in a little bit. You don't get one, Baltimore. All right. So why are we here? LW Marriage. We're here for marriage. It used to be called Marriage Matters. Marriage Matters, right? Marriage Matters. That's why you're here. You're either married or there's a young couple here that's going to get married real soon. Where were they? I just saw them. Yes, there we go. Sitting in the back. Look at that. Yeah, no. Yeah. Don't think you can mess around in the back. We can see you back there. All right. You got anything you want to say?
No, you're doing a great
All right.
job.
Yeah, I am doing a good job, right. And announcements. All right, so this year, here's the deal. We got the four of us. We want to know what we should be talking about, right? We're going to be doing more. I don't know if you were here last year. We had a lot of video. We might still have some video, but for the most part, we're going to do live teaching here. And we would like to know what you would like to find out. So there's a little table out there. You can see the one up against the wall that way, and there's a little plastic thing on there. And there's some note cards in there. If you have questions you'd just like to ask, you can write it. You can put your name or not and drop it in the deal. Or if there's just topics you would like us to discover. And we'll just have that from time to time. We'll go into that, and we'll see what's going on and what you guys want to hear, and we'll try and do some of that.
And we'll try to pretty much tackle any topic you have. I mean, we won't give you probably all the correct answers, but I think, I point at him. The truth of the matter is this: we want to enrich everybody's marriage, and we do that together. So I guarantee you have a question, there's a topic that you want some answers to, and we're going to try our hardest to at least pull some of these questions and really just dive in, not only mind-wise, but what the Bible talks about, what it says about, and just trying to help each other. One of the questions that we had was in ministry, right? I'm like, what do we do when we are yelling at each other in the truck and then we get off with a smile and do ministry together? Like, hey, guys.
Yeah.
What do you do? So I think putting in your topic or your question is really going to just help us grow in our marriages and with each other.
Yeah. We just drive separate cars.
Well, that's what we did.
It works. Fix that problem. We don't.
And see, this is why it's important, because we learn from each other. See, we could have just drove separate.
Yeah. Fixed it. Well, you can't answer your phone.
Can you pick me up next time?
Silent. Put it on pause. Yeah. All right. So I was in the middle of telling you what we're going to do tonight. So we're going to do that. We're going to give out some door prizes. Then we're going to sit down and just have a little discussion, little introduction. We're kind of going to give our testimony and talk about some stuff tonight. And then we're doing a little different tonight. Typically, at the end of that teaching or whatever we would do, we would break off into breakout groups. And if you came through the proper gate and didn't sneak in the back, you got a little packet. And inside this packet is a list of the different groups and a little bio on everybody. But tonight, we're just going to do more of an introduction night. So all our leaders, we're going to have them stand at the end so you get to see them. And then they're going to be out there at a little table. And you can just stop by and visit them. You can kind of pick their brain a little bit or just get to know them a little bit and see who you would like to, whose group you'd like to try out next time. We've also got some home group leaders here, Mick and Julie, and they're going to be out there too. So if you're interested in a home group, they're out in Buffalo. And we've got another home group right now that might be watching us from Ramsey. I'm not sure if they're watching or not, but if they are, hello Ramsey. And so we've got a couple home groups going on too. So that's what we're going to do tonight. I got a couple announcements for you. I want to announce the Flashpoint event that's going on here October 5th and 6th. Yep. Thursday night, all day Friday. How many familiar with the Victory Channel and Flashpoint? Most of you. Okay, so it's kind of a political thing, right? Would you say that? Kind of a political thing. But it'll be really good. Let's hope so. Yeah, I agree. And that'll be right here. Now, that is a registered event. So you have to register. We're kind of hosting that event, not us personally. The church is hosting that event, but it is something that you need to register for, and I think it's probably pretty close to full if it's not full. So you should get registered if you're interested in that at all. Then LW Marriage, on that packet that you got, there's also a list of dates for this year's events in here, so you can check that. You can also always check on the website at lwcc.org/couples. So that's where you'll see the dates. And you should get an email. We'll get you registered if you're new here. We'll get you on the list so that we send out an email the week before. Then, the one I'm excited about most for the announcements, the Men's Advance.
Yes.
So you should have gotten a card when you checked into Men's Advance October 20th through 22nd up at Sugar Lake Lodge. If you've never been to a Men's Advance, you need to go. Women, you need to send your men. I will send them back better men, I promise. Baltimore's going to teach them how to be a real man. So, what?
And Jeff's going to teach me how to be a real man.
Well, Baltimore and Pastor Sean, if you know Pastor Sean and I are going to be teaching up there. But it's just a great time. It's a great resort. It's good accommodations. It's great food. And it's a good chance to meet guys and get to know them and just make some changes in your life. I think you'll be blessed. And then the ladies have a Resilient Hope workshop October 21st in the chapel. That's while we're up at the Men's Advance. The ladies can go to the Resilient Hope workshop in the chapel, 9 a.m. to 12. And that's about it. So we need door prizes. Roger, bring us.
Pastor Jeff?
Yes.
One thing is, if some of you notice, some of our families here have children. So we also have some offering envelopes at that Ask Anything table out there. And if God leads you to put an offering in there for our LW Marriage Kids Ministry, I know they would greatly appreciate it. Our vision is to not charge for childcare kids ministry for LW Marriage. About a season for LW Marriage, it costs roughly about $900 for the kids ministry to house for all of the children. So we just want to be a blessing to them. So God leads you to give. There's going to be offering envelopes out there, and you can just drop it in the little clear box.
All right. So put your question in there and your offering in there if you're interested. Yeah, we'd love to make it free for families so that isn't something that would hold them back. So we have a couple of door prizes. My wife always has to have door prizes. She's excited, so she can get her hand in there. And we're gonna, we got, it's two special coffee mugs and 2 mugs this year. Yeah. So we have 2 couples, so 2 mugs. We got a bigger budget this year. So you each get the cup. You don't have to share and sip out of separate sides. And 2 separate coffee cards of $5 each. So you each get a, special little latte or something. All right.
Pumpkin spice.
Yeah, when you drive separately.
Separate.
Yeah, different. You should go to don't want to run into each other in the line. All right.
Go with the different ones. Okay, 796755.
755. Oh, Mick and Julie.
Love it. Come on down.
All right, Chelsea, pick one out.
796788. 788.
788. Oh,
Yeah.
Lorvin and Tanya. Yes. All right. Well, enjoy. All right. Well, I think we're ready to sit down and have a little talk. All right.
In our Flintstone chairs.
Yeah. My name is Fred, and this is my wife Wilma right here. That's Barney and Betty right down there, the Flintstones. Anybody remember the Flintstones? Look at this, huh? I am king of the world right
nice.
here.
I need a pillow.
They're not comfortable by any means.
I feel like I'm sliding.
Hey, it's best we could do.
Great.
Who wants to start? Baltimore and Chelsea. Let's do this. Let's go and just kind of give our own story, our own testimony, who we are.
Yeah.
I've been talking a long time. I'm going to take a break.
Yeah, let's
Okay,
do it.
well, let's
You
take
guys
a break.
go.
So, as Jeff said, we are Baltimore and Chelsea. And how many years have we been married? Test.
I'm gonna teach y'all something real quick. Don't ever answer. It's a trick question.
Not a trick question. Hopefully you remember.
We're going actually 15 years in October.
Yes.
Ooh.
Big 1-5.
Big 1-5.
Wow.
And we,
Yes, please do that because that's the grace of God.
Yes, it really
And the
is.
mercy.
It really is. And we have 4 amazing children. We have Griffin, who is 17. We've got Tirza, who will be 14 on Monday. We have Araya, who is 12, and Lincoln, who is 8. And we also have the blessing privilege of working here at Living Word in our care and counseling area.
Yeah. So I oversee our care and counseling department, which does a lot of the life events, funerals, weddings, car care ministry, divorce care, grief share, and a lot of the baptisms as well, along with various smaller groups. I do have the privilege and the honor to work with my wife, so we work together.
This is the only time he ever gets to tell me that he's my boss.
I didn't even say it. Did you
The
say it?
only time.
But no, honest truth, we've been married going on 15 years, and we've worked with each other every single year, every
All of
single
our
job,
15 years
every
we've
single
had.
job we had. And we've come to a conclusion. We figured this out the other day. We were talking about it. Like, when it comes to ministry, we're great with each other. We can do everything. We can change the world. But we can't work with each other on house
Do not
projects.
ask me to paint a room with him. No, because
Smaller projects, we cannot work with each other at all.
no, it's weird.
So, but yeah, so we've been at Living Word here. I've been with Living Word since 2008. I was located at the downtown location at the Wells. I started there, and the Lord just kind of moved me on up towards the mothership here. The end of 2019,
no, 17. I think.
17.
Yeah, 17 or 18.
something like that. But it's been a privilege. It's honestly been an honor to be able to be here. And then we're excited to really co-lead this year, really. That's something that the Lord put on our heart for quite a while. You know, it was something that I believe it truly stems off for the whole ministry in general. It begins with the married couples, and then it goes into the youth, men's group, women's group, youth, kids, all the way down. And what a beautiful opportunity we have as married couples to really invest in not only the next generation, but everybody that we come into contact, to set that example of what the Bible talks about, of what Christ leads us. And so when God put it on our heart, we kind of toiled with it back and forth. We didn't know exactly what to do because of the simple fact that we felt unqualified. We felt like, you know what, God, like can we say something that'll be impactful? As a matter of fact, God, can we even truly model something that we never saw modeled in our home life? And that's where, we are different in that case because she had her mom and her dad in the picture, and then they separated, and then she had a stepdad. I had my mom and dad in the picture, but my dad was a womanizer. My mother did witchcraft. She did all these things. So I did not have a good example of a marriage. But the difference is she grew up in ministry.
And I grew up with parents who were together in ministry. We were great as a family on the outside, but behind the 4 walls of the home, we were probably one of the most dysfunctional Christian homes ever. My mom, I love her to death, but she was very much a what I say goes type of person. If you didn't do it for her right then, she would just go ahead and do it herself. So of course those little things, and we just had a circumstance today. A situation came up yesterday where we had differences. But in my mind, it wasn't okay to agree to disagree.
Somebody had to be right and somebody had to be wrong.
wrong. There never could be that agree to disagree. Somebody had to be right and somebody had to be wrong. And it was so crazy because today it's like epiphany went off, like a light bulb went off in my mind. And I was like, wow, that's how I grew up. My mom had to be right And then my stepdad was wrong. They never could agree to disagree. And it was crazy on how after being almost 15, years married and being, not in the house for how long, that I kind of like dug up those roots and I exposed those roots and I'm like, okay, now I know why I have that thought mentality. So now I know that I can change that.
That's
You have a
good.
question?
No, that's good. That's good. There's stuff that, I think even as we've been married 37 years, 37 and a half years, there's still stuff that we're digging up.
I'm going to have to say
Yeah.
that again because you're like, had
37.
37.
Well, I have to
I'm gonna
do
need
the
you to be more
math. It's
enthusiastic
like a
about that.
math thing. I can't remember how many years. 37 years. Yeah. Yeah, 3 of the best years of my life. Yeah. All right, no, go ahead.
Yeah, so, and then just a couple years ago, my mom and my stepdad got a divorce. And I don't know. Yeah, we grew up very different ways, even though I grew up with my parents together. He
And I didn't.
didn't.
And that's crazy because her family, her stepdad was a pastor. And so for the longest time, what took her parents away and to model that marriage was ministry. They were constantly serving, constantly gone. So she would see ministry pastors and leaders all the time in front of everyone. And then behind closed doors, it was completely different. It was turmoil. It was overminding each other. It was yelling at each other, so on and so forth. So the model that she had was not a good representation of what they were even telling people. It was something so dysfunctional. And me, on the other hand, I didn't grow up in ministry. My dad was a womanizer. He drove for some very powerful people. And my mother, being a little Mexican lady that stood 5'1", she had 3 jobs working all the time just to show us how much she loved us. My father being present all the time, but yet never really there, was an emotional, spiritually, and physically abusive gentleman. So when it came to me, my mom, and everybody else, that's what I had to look at. So when we got together and God put on our heart marriage, we felt unqualified. We're like, how do we even do this? How do we really establish a good marriage, God? Like we don't have role models. And to be quite honest, the reason what kept us from even asking other couples was because we're like, we don't want them to judge us. We don't want them to judge us. And the truth of the matter was, we came to the understanding that, Pastor Charlie says it and Pastor Jeff says it now, LW marriage has good marriages, bad marriages, and everything in between. And the beautiful thing about that, it says in the book of Proverbs, you want to read that real quick?
Yeah, Proverbs 18:22, and this is the NIV translation. It says, "He who finds a wife finds what is good and receives favor from the Lord."
So with that, he who finds a wife, he who finds, if you actually break that, the transliteration of that Hebrew word, the word finds, it means to obtain, to secure, to acquire, to go get, and to go find.
Sought after.
Right? Sought after. That's the transliteration, not the translation, but the transliteration of that word. So it puts now the ball in our park, right? In our court to go find. And in that process that we started talking and thinking about marriage, there is no good marriage. As a matter of fact, I'll go to the extent to say this. There is no such things as a soulmate. They're made. Amen. Soulmates are made. If we go out, it is going to be hardships. It's going to be trials and tribulations. But as you grow with each other, you forge each other into it. So the theme that you'll hear Chelsea and I throughout the times that we do teach is going to be from that side. It's going to be from the side of forging your marriage through the heat, through the turmoil. Sometimes we have to work through things. That's why we put that box out there so that we can really tackle topics that you want to know about. There's marriages that are good, marriages that are bad, and everything in between. But at the end of the day, we all are good together. We're growing together. So we had just kind of briefly talked about, like, okay, what exactly do we want to discuss this year and stuff like that. And we came up with what the times that we teach is we're going to take topics, so on and so forth. But I think our heart is really to pour ourselves out to you guys and receive from you guys and really grow together. So the plan that we have is, that we want to unfold is understanding God's design for marriage. Truly understand it biblically from what he says. The first point that we're going to be kind of addressing.
It's the biblical foundations of marriage, which means like what is God's intent and purpose for marriage? Biblical examples of marriage and the significance of it, because that's very important, because it's important to apply those to your marriage. And then the roles and responsibilities of husbands and wives. When we got married, I can honestly say I didn't know what the responsibility really of a wife was. I knew what the responsibility was a mother and a homemaker, but I didn't honestly understand what the responsibility of being a wife was. And some of these topics they're gonna be deep. They're probably gonna be heavy.
But I think that's the biggest thing. So we're going to address these topics biblically, not necessarily what society is telling us, but exactly what the Bible talks about, what a biblical marriage looks like versus what the world wants us to be like. The second thing is going to be marriage as a covenant, the significance of a covenant within the marriage, the understanding of the permanence in a marriage, staying when it gets tough, pushing, forging, just looking at each other saying, through hell and hot waters, we're going to buckle up. I'm from the South, so if you hear me say something weird, I'm not going to apologize, but just ask me what I meant later, okay?
I still ask them.
And she does that. She looks at me, she's like, what did
What'd
you
you
say?
say?
I was like, yep. And then the emphasis on the importance of the commitment and fidelity in a marriage. So then the third point would
And
be...
then the third is going to be the impact of sin on a marriage, recognizing the effects of sin on a marriage. I heard this the other day. It's like if you were negatively introduced something in the past, it's going to negatively affect you throughout your adulthood and your life.
Absolutely, past trauma. And then the understanding of the roles of forgiveness and reconciliation, and then applying biblical principles to understanding and addressing sin and restoring relationships. So that's the approach that we want to take this year, because we really want to just sit here. We want to do life with you guys. I mean, a healthy church, even though we're big and we're huge, our whole endeavor is really to make this church as small as we can so that we can actually do life with each other. Because there's people in this room that have been married 37 years that can invest in us without even saying one word because they're modeling a good marriage. If you really look at the Bible, even though there's mistransliterations of the word, it's not in there, but it talks about perfect, right? Be ye perfect. That word actually in its intended outcome, in its actual written terms transliterated, it's not in the Bible. It's the word holy. Be ye holy. So that's what we're trying to do in our marriages, be holy. There is no such thing as a perfect marriage, but together we can move forward. So that's our story in a nutshell, and what we really want to, we're excited to be co-leading this year because we get to know from you, from Pastor Jeff and Kay, and grow our marriage as well so that we can continue to be good representatives.
I remember within the first year that I'd met you, which hasn't been that many years now, you talked about the call to marriage ministry that you felt as a couple, which I find, now I'm just doing the math, so you went on staff almost immediately after you got married.
Yeah.
Down at the Wells, yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
2008.
So how did you two get together, and how did you end up at the church?
So we met at youth camp.
That's a plug right there. If y'all got kids, I'm just kidding.
No, I do not encourage your children to meet their spouse at youth camp.
No. When we met at youth camp, it was
It wasn't
actually
like
really
that,
innocent.
though.
I'm gonna
No,
be
it
honest.
was.
She's gonna give you like the PG version. I'm gonna give you, because we're all adults, right?
Oh, my Lord.
I'm just kidding. So when we met, I'm not gonna lie, I had a girlfriend at the time. At that youth camp, that I forgot I had
A girlfriend.
a girlfriend.
Wow.
No,
She
but-
erased your
True
memory
story.
with one look. That was
the-
awesome.
I had,
Yeah,
I remember
no,
she
get
What
it.
came
did
up
the-
to me and I was like, who
Yeah.
are you? Oh, you're my
One of the
girlfriend.
counselors actually walked up, she was like a junior counselor, and she walked up to me and she's like, so-and-so is really upset. And I was like, who are they? They're like, it's Baltimore's girlfriend. And I'm like, oh, he left that very valuable
Yeah.
But
information
honestly,
behind.
Putting all vulnerability aside, before that, I was freshly out. I was still in gangs. I had narcotics in my pocket. I had never been to a church, nothing, anything.
That Bible camp.
Let alone Bible
Okay,
camp.
all right. Yeah,
And they said, you want to go? And my first question was, is there going to be girls? And they're like, yes. I was like, I'll go. I'll sign up right now. So I went with the girlfriend to find girlfriends.
Find other girls.
But can I be completely honest? That was the very first time I felt the Lord spoke to me. And it scared the crap out of me because I was sleeping in the back of a van and I woke up and I felt the Lord said, that's your wife. And I stopped and I'm like, no, this is weird. Because my mother, again, going backtrack, she did witchcraft. So I was familiar with the spiritual world, but not God. So when I felt like I heard the Lord said, that's your wife, I'm like, huh? Now there's little details in between that I'll tell you later, but I looked over and I saw this young girl walking with 4 girls. And the innocence that came over me in the sense of like, I was intrigued. I wanted to get to know her. And it wasn't sexual. It wasn't like, oh my gosh, she's fine. Or, I mean, I did, but that's not what I meant. but
You did not act on that.
I didn't act on that. So for that whole week, I just really was so intrigued because she was holding herself in such a manner that it was different from girls that I knew. And it was crazy because it was her last year at the youth camp.
So I just decided to go this time for God because before, of course, you're young and I went for boys. And then growing up in a Christian home, you just never had the option as a teenager to not go to youth camp. So I always went to youth camp because my parents also helped start it. So we met that year. We just became close and friends. And then we actually lost touch for about 5 years.
So for 5 years, we leave that youth camp. And at this time, again, it's a week later, that Friday, she leaves. She goes back into ministry in her life. And I'm at a crossroads. I don't know what to do. So shortly after that, the Lord put the calling in my life. So for the next 5 years, I gave my life to the Lord. I submitted myself to the call and I started traveling. I started ministering. I started going to juvenile correction centers, to Native American reservations, to prisons, everywhere I could. I started doing music and I started traveling, doing music, doing 150 shows a year, just traveling everywhere. So 5 years passed by and I don't know this girl. I don't know where she's at. And I'm sending her messages. At that time,
On
it was MySpace.
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 Yeah, some of y'all do remember MySpace. So I remember every single city that I would go to, I would try to find her. I remember her last name. So back then it was phone books. Y'all remember them phone books?
Yeah. Yeah.
I find her last name and I'd call. Nope. And I'm like, ah. So we traveled to the next city and I'd call and I'd call. So you would assume that after 5 years I would get the clue, like, you're not going to find her. So I gave up. I was like, God, you know what? Whatever. I'm in North Dakota. It's like midnight. I find her last name and I'm like, I'm just going to try. I call her and she answers the phone. And I'm like, hey, hello?
Y'all
And
cool
I'm like,
now.
hey, so I am here. I know. And she's like, I remember. I mean, she remembered everything about us.
Wow.
And you would assume she'd jump in her vehicle and come and meet me. She goes, sorry, I can't meet you.
I was living a lifestyle at that time that
So
we'll go into that
I
later.
left the gang world, the drugs, pursued God. And when I left that, she picked up my old lifestyle.
So then kind of fast forward to 2008, I remember I was at my mom's. I started getting my life right, and I was clean and stuff. And then I jumped on MySpace, and there was a message from him that he was at Battle of the Bands in Minneapolis at Club 3 Degrees.
Yeah.
So at that time, I had our oldest son, Griffin, has a different dad, but we were at my mom's, and I'm like, would you mind watching Griffin for the evening? I want to drive to Minneapolis because I would like to go see Baltimore play at Club 3. And she's like, yeah, I'll do that. So I met a good friend of mine, and we drove into the city together, and I walked in, and he was standing right there when I walked in and didn't even recognize me. Just blew right past me.
Wow.
So I was standing in the front of Club 3 Degrees during his set, and I was just staring at him. And then he stopped the whole entire concert.
I said, DJ.
Wow.
And then proceeded to tell everybody who I was, all this
I
other
told her,
stuff.
I was like, I've been
It was
looking
the
for
most
this girl for
embarrassing
5
thing
years.
ever.
Wow.
And then the rest was history. We talked all night and all the way home. And
So
a few
as-
months after that, we were engaged.
Yeah, and then in between there, I went to Go Ministries, which was a ministry that was here at Living Word. So I joined Go Ministries in 05, 06, during that time when I was traveling as well. And that's how I got plugged in here at Living Word. So I started traveling with them, doing music and ministry and stuff. And then in 2008 is when we got married. And then they brought me on as a youth pastor at the Wells. And like I said, little by little. And from there, I went to part-time chaplain with Maranatha and then pastoral care. And then in 19, I took over completely over care and counseling. And yeah,
Well, there you are.
And now I'm her boss.
He had to
This
end
is
with
the
that
only
one.
time I can say that. I'm gonna see how many times I can get away with it today.
There we go.
Did I mention that I'm her boss?
Yeah.
I'm just
Well,
kidding.
I'm interested to hear more of these stories in the meantime as they unravel. You guys, most of you, if you've been around a while, you've heard most of our dirty laundry, right? And all of our dirty story. If you haven't, I guess we're going to tell you a little bit right now. Kay's going to start out with kind of how we met, and then we'll go from there. A little bit, there's something you're going to pick up here that is very similar to your story.
You
About
did
what
hip hop too?
Said when you,
Yeah, that's right.
yeah.
You did music?
Yeah, I do hip hop too. I'm a
Yeah.
real hip hop. You tell my shoes.
From
you can tell-
comedy to hip hop.
You tell my shoes. I'm a hip hop guy.
Those are sweet shoes. I like them.
You picked them out.
Okay.
Baltimore. Okay, so Baltimore. They used to lead a group here, a breakout group at LW Marriage. They did it for a couple years, I think, and then they took a year off. Baltimore had some health issues, so he had a surgery. He's sitting at home and he can't drive. So I go and pick him up and we go shopping.
Yeah.
Two dudes.
The doctor wanted me to walk more, and he's like, let's go.
So I was like,
in the
come
middle of
pick
the
him up.
winter, so it's snowing. So I take him to Ridgedale, and we go shopping, like a couple of dudes in the middle of the afternoon shopping. And he picked out some shoes for me, and these are the shoes he picked out for me. So I don't know if they look cool or not, but he said they looked all right. So, all right, anyway, little aside, go ahead. We're not going to walk Ridgedale again, sorry.
Okay, so after I graduated from high school, my parents moved to Rapid City, South Dakota, and they did not want me to stay in Minneapolis, or I lived in Elk River. So we moved to Rapid City, and I started working, had other jobs. I started working at a place called Hart Ranch, H-A-R-T. And so I was working in a Western store. Yes, I was a pretend cowgirl. I was pretending to be one. And so I was looking out the window, and I noticed this guy walking down, didn't know who he was, and I didn't usually do this, you guys. I didn't do this. I had a roommate who did this. But I looked out the window, and I said, I think I'm gonna marry that guy. And I'm going, no. I mean, I didn't think that way, right?
Smart.
So
Smart.
I
Had
looked
no
at,
chance.
yes, and so then I kind of blew that off, and we eventually got together, and
You stopped traffic.
we
Our first, I don't know, it wasn't even a date. Later on that week, probably within a week or two, I lived at a friend of mine owned a resort, and they were selling it. So I came out there for the summer just to kind of hang out, and we had this big ranch house that sat up at the top of this hill. And the resort was down below, and they had a concession that had horse rides and stuff. So she went and got a horse.
okay. I did not
came-
pretend I was a cowgirl then. Okay,
Came to
because I
see
was
me
one.
on a horse.
I was one.
Yep.
I rode horse.
I think
A
she
couple
was
times.
wearing really, really tight pink pants and a Western shirt.
Probably high heels.
He
with
says,
it.
I think. It's like engraved in
I
his mind.
think.
So I think. So yeah. So we met, and well, we met, and then all of a sudden, I
We
don't know
went
how,
on a couple of dates.
couple of dates. I got pregnant for some reason, somehow.
She said pregnant. She kind of cold-headed over that. She got pregnant.
I got pregnant, and so we worked on that thing. We had some discussions about that, and then so he had to think about it. He had to
Yeah.
kind of process, and
So this is,
we didn't know each other.
we had only truly gone on a couple of dates.
Yeah.
So y'all, remember how in love you were when you got married? Yeah, that's not us.
That
at
wasn't
all.
us.
That was not us.
Yeah.
We didn't know each other.
We didn't know each
so
other.
this was January, because I remember she came into my office. She came into my office and she says, I'm pregnant. And I'm like, okay. But I recognized her, so that was good.
I was like, Jeff Cruz, you are the father.
We got married March 8th.
Yeah.
So this is after New Year's. She's telling me we got married March 8th.
Yeah.
So we were.
Well, let's just say we didn't know each other. Let's start that.
We
So
didn't.
we didn't know each other as husband
I mean, we'd
and wife.
met.
I didn't even know his middle name. We didn't know a thing about each other.
There was an older couple there. I think they were probably in their mid-30s. right? I mean, because to us, they were older, right? And they were a Christian couple that we knew.
Yeah.
And we were Christians at the time. We
Yes.
obviously weren't abiding by all the tenets of the faith, but we were Christians. So we called them. She was a nurse, and he worked at the ranch there. And anyway, they had a couple kids. You know, they were farther along than us. And we said, what are we going to do? And we woke them up, and I think it was
midnight. It was
midnight or
yeah.
something. And they said, come on over. You know, and we sat down and we talked and we cried. And they gave us a few words of counsel, but mostly just a shoulder to cry on, you know, because so then it was, okay, well, you guys got to decide what you're going to do, you know, and we both were like, you know, abortion was not an option for us. It would have been an option for almost everybody else in that situation, right? But it wasn't an option for us. So we talked about it some, and then we just we didn't separate. We kept in touch and kept talking. But we had to make a decision whether we were going to get married or not. Mm-hmm. And we made the decision to get married. And it was, I look back at it, and it's obviously not the Cinderella story that everybody's looking for, right? And we were talking about this just a couple days ago when we were talking about this, and you said some things about what we missed.
Yeah. Yeah, we missed, I told them, in high school, I don't know if you ladies did this, but, you in a class, you got to plan your wedding. What dress you're going to wear, how many you're going to be there, what colors you're going to have. So you kind of, in high school, you're already planning your wedding before you even met anybody. And so that, it was almost like the Cinderella thing was just taken away. And what was the other one? I can't remember now. What was the other thing I said? Oh yeah, it was having, to be totally honest, having someone impress me, and me impress them.
I mean, aside from me walking down the road, that was impressive.
Yeah, that was impressive
Other
in
than
itself.
that.
But you know how when you dated, you impressed your boyfriend, girlfriend.
Yeah.
You impressed them. You showed them who you were, and you talked about your life, what you wanted to do, what were your interests,
Right.
what are you planning on doing, down the road? And we never did that.
Yeah.
We never did that. The only thing we talked about was, okay, when should we get married, and when is this baby due, and 6 months later.
Yeah, so I mean, so within 60 days, we made the decision. I proposed, and her response was, I did it actually really nice. We went to a nice restaurant. I'd gone there that afternoon and had talked to the waiter and had gotten the ring and put it in the menu so that when she opened up the menu, the ring was there, and I proposed to her. And her response was, do you remember this? Mm-hmm. Are you sure?
Are you sure? Yeah. Are you sure?
Ringing endorsement. Yes, I'm really excited about this. Oh, thank you very much for asking.
Sure.
I'd love to spend the rest of my life with you. None of that. I said, yeah, I'm pretty sure. I don't know. Why not?
Not sure anymore. Okay.
But so it was very interesting. I went through this time, and there were key individuals in that timeline that I talked to, and that gave me some advice. But of course, praise God, they didn't tell me what to do, right? But they just gave me godly advice. And it was like, so I made the decision, okay, she's going to have a baby. I want to be part of the baby's life. It's very pragmatic, right? Very not remotely romantic.
Right.
But do I want some other, because she was cute, she's still cute. But she's going to get married.
She was cute.
I got to watch it here.
Yeah.
She was going to get married. And did I want another man raising my baby? Right? I mean, so these are pragmatic issues I had to deal with and go, I don't think I can stand that. And then I thought, well, I'm going to stick with her through this pregnancy. I'm going to be with her. I'm not going to abandon her. I'm not just going to say, and I liked her. It wasn't just, I just didn't know her. I just didn't, it's like, you can't make that decision. But I thought, I'm going to make that decision, and we decided to get married. And for me, it was, I come from a Christian background. There wasn't any divorce in my family in the history that I knew about. And I didn't want to be the first one, so it's like I'm making this decision for life. Mm-hmm. And for me, from that point on, so sometime in February, I suppose, it was going to be for life. Mm-hmm. And I wasn't crazy about that idea, but it was like it's going to be, and I'm just going to make it work. Now, fast forward, it was probably 10 years before, well, you told us, one of the other times that we've told this story, it was 10 years before she woke up not wondering if I was going to leave her, but wondering when.
I grew up in divorce. I mean, my parents didn't, but I had brothers who did. So, you know, that foundation really wasn't taught to me.
Yeah.
So, yeah, because we were still trying to get to know each other in those 10 years. You know, does he like me? Am I like, huh? You know, so you go through all these little different thoughts process when you're living with somebody that you don't know.
Yeah.
So it did a lot of mind games,
So, you know, when you look at two couples that should be doing marriage ministry, you know, obviously this is the obvious for two couples.
Yeah.
So let's talk about our first foray into marriage ministry.
Yes. Okay.
This is probably 20 years ago. Let's say 20 years ago. More like 25 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we decided we would go to one of the, I don't know what it was, Heirs
I think it was Heirs Together,
Happy Homes, or I don't know what it was.
Happy Heirs Together Matters, LW something.
Yeah.
I don't know what it was.
No, I think
Yeah.
so. We didn't go.
All right.
We didn't go.
So we went once.
We went once. So we went in, and so that first night, we had this big sheet of paper of, where was your best vacation?
So we're probably
No.
married 6-7 years at this point. We got 3 kids.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it had like a list of things of your favorite vacation, where's your romantic, and blah, 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 and where's your blah, 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 blah. And we're going, no,
Yeah,
don't,
skip. Yeah.
no.
Not
nothing.
applicable.
So we never returned.
Yeah.
Now, not
So we
their
have
fault.
a list like that for you guys at the end if you guys can fill it out.
Yeah, there's a list.
Very-
There's a list.
We were embarrassed.
But that was our fault.
Absolutely, it was.
It would have been the best thing
Oh.
for us to come back. So come back, you guys.
Yeah.
Come back.
Truthfully, we were just embarrassed. We could have learned so much from those people in that
Yes.
group, but we suffered on for years
did.
and years and years after that, just barely squeaking by with no help and just faking it and coming to church with a big smile on our face and serving in ministry and doing all that stuff with a big smile on our face. And then home life, we weren't at each other, but it was just kind of, ugh, right?
Yeah.
And the truth is, those leaders,
bad.
those breakout leaders that led that group, you know, we didn't know them at the time. They became great friends of ours
Yeah.
afterwards, but and have meant something to us in the meantime. But we could have started that way earlier
Long
if we
time.
just had gotten over our own pride.
Because you know what? I think back then I thought that we were the only ones
Right.
who was going through all that.
Right.
So did I want to stick out?
Right.
You know, did I want this big light down? You know, but everybody goes through something. There's phases in our lives that we go through, and everyone goes through something.
So I think, you know, you made the mention of there's great marriages and bad marriages and everything in between. The truth is we all have great marriages at certain points and lousy marriages at other points and everywhere in between. And it cycles in and out if we're truthful with each other, right? It is not one of these. And I'm sorry to blow that for you in the back there.
Yeah. Oops, come back,
You know,
please.
I really do. But it isn't just this trajectory that gets better and better and better and better. It isn't. It oscillates. Hopefully there's a trend line in there, right? I mean, we always hear that the happiest couples are, and the truth is, if you look at the data out there, the happiest people is in those first years of marriage. And what a ridiculous thing that is, that rookies would have their best years and then it would only get worse from there. That doesn't make any sense, right? But the truth is, we aren't working on it. We're not working on it. So yeah, we get this, and then we get disillusioned, and then things go bad, and it kind of just gets into this no man's zone. But so that's why we're here. We got coerced into leading a marriage matters breakout group about 15 years ago, let's say.
Coerced.
We did. We became begging, and you guys wanted to do marriage ministry. We did not want to do marriage ministry.
We didn't feel qualified.
We didn't feel qualified.
We did not.
But by this time, we'd kind of turned our marriage around, and we were doing pretty good.
Yeah.
I'd say we were happy most of the time.
Yeah.
There was
times.
there's a story about, I don't know, 6-7 years into our marriage where she wanted to jump out of a moving car just to get me to stop from talking. So we passed that point. We were no longer
I will
at the
never
time where
forget
she was
that,
trying
by
to
the
get
way.
rid of me by
The
moving on.
Sixth Sense
Hopefully-
movie was
Yeah.
about you.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And the funny part about that story is that happened probably 5, 6 years in, 7 years in, I don't know. I found out about it when we were preparing to do a Marriage Matters talk probably 5 years ago. She kept that story from me for 20 years.
Oh, I'll never forget
So
that
anyway,
story.
there was another group leader that was taking a sabbatical and going to be gone, and Danny Gutierrez was in charge at the time, Danny and Stephanie, and they asked us to step in, and I said, Danny, we don't even go, to Marriage Matters. And he says, well, that's fine. You don't have to go. You guys got a good marriage, and you know how to facilitate a group. I said, Danny, we don't want to. We were involved in a couple areas of ministry at the time. I don't want to do one more thing. I don't have it. And he says, Jeff. And he knew that I had 2 close friends that were either going through divorce or close to going through divorce at the time. He says, Jeff, is there not a cause? I thought, you dirty dog.
Those pastors, I tell you.
All right, 1 year. We'll do 1 year. And there's people in here that were here that first night. They're right back there. Yeah,
Yes,
there's other
yes.
people that were in that group that night. We came. We
Scared.
So they had an established group, right? They had a group that all knew each other, or we thought they did anyway. There was probably 30 people in that circle, in that breakout group. And we're the new people. So we introduced ourselves, and we were just going to have an icebreaker. And we were a little nervous about what was going to happen. And I remember the question that night for an icebreaker was, tell us how you got born again. How'd you get saved? So, okay, back up just a minute. We said, okay, are we going to do this? Because we're going to do this, are we going to be transparent or not? Are we going to tell everybody that we've had a sucky marriage and that we started terrible and that we've got a kid that's, was a preemie and all that stuff, right? Be real honest. And we decided, yeah, we're just going to do it, right? We're just going to be honest. So we just told our story a little bit, and then we started around the circle, and we got about 3 people down, and Terry Anderson, if any of you know Terry Anderson, he sat back, he says, well, I got saved watching Pastor Mac on TV from Stillwater Prison. And the whole crowd went, he was, so he was a drug dealer. We went around the room, there was 3 drug dealers in that circle, right? And we thought, okay, this is fun, this is gonna be fun. And we've had so much fun doing this.
We really have had a lot of fun doing it.
So-
And we've met so many wonderful people,
Yeah.
and boy, that's amazing.
It is.
Yes, and I hope you guys find that out too,
And-
the people who are just
And here's something I used to always say and get in trouble for, so I'll just say it again, because, whatever. Marriage Matters is where you come to find out that your wife's not crazy, she's just a woman. Mm-hmm. And the vice versa this is where you go
For those that are watching online at this time,
this is where she goes to find out that you're not crazy, you're just a man. And what we find out from each other is that, there's things that are kind of common to all of us, and we can
Yes.
pick up on some of that stuff. And there are times when you go through life and you think, why is she like that? Well, there's a reason she's like that. It's because that's the way God made her. And a lot of it is just this stuff that we don't hear about, we never heard about from our parents, we didn't hear about from anybody else, and we learn about it from other people by watching their marriages. They're vulnerable enough to say about it. But when was the last time you sat down for dinner with somebody and you talked about your marriage? Probably never, right? Somebody you don't know very well, or maybe even somebody you know really well and you spend time with and travel. Do you sit down and talk about marriage with them? You should, but most of the time we don't. So that's what this is all about. Mm-hmm. Let's focus on talking about marriage, be as vulnerable as you dare be, and just see what comes out of it and learn from each other. We're going to talk from time to time and have some hopefully some wisdom from you or for you, but the truth is most of what you're going to get is going to be in the breakout groups, and everybody that's been here very long will attest to that. That's where you get that connection. That's where you get those. Just you're hearing somebody else and you go, oh, wait a minute, I could do it a little different. And so anyway, so we got involved doing just a breakout group, and then Danny and Stephanie had us speak a couple of times, and then as time goes on, we've been head of Marriage Matters now. This is our 4th season.
Is it?
I think it's our 4th season. And we've had so much fun. We're running out of stories, so we're going to have some new fights, and then we'll tell you about those. You got something else you want? I want to talk a
No,
little bit about.
well, you had mentioned, when's the last time you talk about your marriage at a table or just talking, and some of you might not, but some of you might always have these conversations about your marriage with somebody, but there might be situations that come up that you don't necessarily know how to answer. And that's what, again, the reason we want to just pour into you and vice versa is so that we can navigate these questions, these topics that, you might be talking, like I said, through your marriage all the time, but something comes up, you're like, I don't know. So our hope is that we really can come together and support each other in our marriages and beyond that. You know what I mean? Not just a one time we really want to push home groups. We want to push different breakout groups together so we can grow. I mean, that's the biggest thing. And I think that's why we're excited, again, to really just glean from other relationships. You know what I mean? You look at the Bible in Genesis, it talks about the fall of man. But if you really look at that, before the fall of man, there was the fall of marriage. That's what Satan wanted to do. So before the fall of man, Satan said, he went to her, hearing what God spoke to Adam or to man, and he still questioned her. He made her question marriage, and then that's where it fell. And then man fell because of that. Marriage was the first thing attacked in the Bible, and you can read that in Genesis 2:24. The very first thing that was attacked was marriage. And it's something that Satan still wants to continue to use now, because if our marriages are not solidified at home, not just at church, because we can play church real good, but if it's not solidified at home, that's where the Bible talks about training up a child in the way they go. It's not just biblically. Back then it was all culturally. It was everything about the family. So if we can train our children, those that have children, what a healthy marriage looks like, then they grow out to be healthy adults, followers, and servants of Jesus. And that's what we want in order for us to really take over this world. In every aspect of what God wants us to do, we have to start at home. It starts with us encouraging. Iron sharpens iron, forging these marriages together. If you've ever seen the process of iron sharpening iron, it doesn't look beautiful at times. There's sparks. It's hard, it's hot, it's heated. But if you look at one blade being sharp, it sharpens the other one and that was dull. And that one that was sharpened becomes dull. And that one that was dull, that sharpened, is doing the same thing, going back and forth, helping each other, encouraging each other. So we're just excited.
Yeah. We are too.
We are
And
too.
I don't know if any of you noticed this or not. It's very subtle, but there's an age difference between them and us. Probably didn't pick up on that, but it's kind of significant. More than you might think, It's like 10 years or something. It's a lot.
It's like my mom used to say, but you look good, baby. You look good.
So here's the deal. We've talked about this a lot, and we've talked about it with them, and why are we hooking up together, other than, of course, our similarities in fashion sense. But why would we?
Our gray hair.
Yeah, it's our gray hair. Yeah, he's premature. Mine's not. It's all earned. So here's the deal. Life used to be different. People used to grow up and live where their parents lived and where their grandparents lived. My grandparents were first-generation Americans from Germany and Norway. And they, on the German side, my grandpa and grandma grew up 2 miles from each other out on the farm. And then they got married. And then they moved to a house that when they sat and looked out their front window, they looked at the place that she was born and raised. And then my dad got married to my mom, and she lived about 5 miles from there. And they moved to town for a minute, and then they came back and bought the farm half mile from my grandparents' place, right? And this was normal when I was growing up. This is the way things were, and I think it was that way in a lot of cities. I know, I'm a real estate appraiser by trade. I'm part-time here at church, but I've still got a business. I still work. And I remember being appraising houses in northeast Minneapolis, and it was all full of Polacks, right? It was all full of Polish Catholic guys. And there were generation after generation after generation of Polish Catholics living in northeast Minneapolis. So it was the same thing happening there that was happening in South Dakota amongst the farm. So you grew up in a multi-generational society where you saw your parents, you saw your grandparents, you saw everybody else's parents and their grandparents, and then things changed and everybody started moving away from town. I moved 200 miles away from my parents. She moved that way and then moved back this way, and we don't have those family relationships anymore, so we're missing some of that. And we thought, how rich is it? And we always think about mentoring as from someone older to someone younger. And yes, that can happen, but mentoring also can take place the other way too. I mean, we talk about, we don't do marriage the way our parents did marriage, right? And our kids aren't doing marriage the way we did marriage. And sometimes we have a really hard time relating to them. And we think they're doing it wrong. And the truth is, if you look at society and you look at divorce rates, they haven't really changed a whole lot over the last 100 years. Maybe they're not doing it worse than we are. Maybe the old days weren't any better. I don't know. Maybe we haven't improved anything. Maybe it's just different. I don't know. You'd have a hard time finding statistics to say that it's getting worse or better, to be honest with you, if you dig down deep enough to really get to it. But I think we could take the best from the old to the medium to the young and combine them, and I think we can be better. And that, I think, would apply to raising kids. It can apply. So here's the deal. So I've got kids about their age, a little younger, right? And sometimes I have a hard time relating to them. We see what they're doing, and we're kind of going, But I can, and they could tell me why they're doing it different, and I might be greatly offended by that because they're telling me I did it wrong, right? Baltimore and Chelsea can tell me did it wrong, and I'm not offended by them. It's just a different opinion. But now I can understand how my kids are thinking. So I think there's some value in here in having two different generations, and I hope that you can envision that you younger couples, when you see the old folks up here talking, that you feel like you can get something from what we're saying. Maybe you can just understand some things. Maybe it's in a different culture or a different time frame than you're used to. But the same way for those of us that are a little bit older, when Baltimore and Chelsea are up here, you can learn something from them. There are some better ideas probably than what we had, and there's certainly some ideas that your kids have that maybe you can understand and therefore have a better relationship with them. I used to always tell my kids, there was a time when they were, and actually they're all at different churches now, but when they were looking to be at a different church, and I would always say, I can't tell you that you need to be at any certain church, but here's one relationship I know that you have, and I can prove it by DNA. You're supposed to be my son, and you're supposed to be my daughter, right? So I know that relationship is supposed to be intact, and I'm going to do everything to keep that family relationships intact. And part of that is understanding them. And to be able to have an impact in their life, I need to understand them. So that's kind of what we're doing with this multi-generational thing and why we think it's powerful. We might even try and do some breakout groups that would mix that a little bit. So we'll see how that works out, and we'll see if we can figure out a way to do that. That would make sense. But we're looking forward to a great year. It seems like there's a good energy to have them with us. It feels good to have some companions, and we just know that their heart for ministry is really strong, and we're excited about what God's doing here. So, you got anything else?
Before we dismiss,
Yeah.
If none of you know, we do have an LW Marriage Facebook page.
Yes.
Go and like that, and then there'll be updates on there as well. And then you can also find LW Marriage in the groups on the Church Center app. That way you will get all of the emails of upcoming meeting times, and if we're doing anything fun outside of meeting here. And the next one is October 13th, correct?
Okay. I don't. It's on the sheet.
Yes.
October 13th it is.
Yeah.
And we've got some cards out there too sitting at the table. LW Marriage plus XO Marriage, and this is, you can use these as invite cards. Here's what I want to encourage you. If you think that this is going to be good, or you think that you'd like to have some backup, go invite your friends and bring them with you next time. Okay?
And those who bring the most friends, there might be an incentive for you.
Ooh, we might come up with something.
Oh, yeah.
Pastor Jeff's shoes.
There we go.
We're going to give those. We're going to raffle them off.
Yay.
All right. So anyway, we're going to dismiss now. Now we've got some good food for you out there. We got a little bit more of a bigger buffet than we usually have because we want to encourage you to stick around, have some refreshments. We've got some fruit out there for those of you that don't like sugar. There's also some really good sugar out there. You notice I left you some candy, right? So I gave you water and candy because most of the time we have cookies when people come in, and I didn't want you all to go cold turkey on me and, get diabetic fits while you're out here sitting here. So I gave you a little bit of sugar, but there's going to be a lot more sugar. So Lee and Marcy, could you go just to get that on? So when you grab some food out there, some water, Mingle, check out the different tables. Let's have all our group leaders stand up, if you will. Just so you can see the faces.
Yeah.
Now look around at the different leaders. These guys are going to be standing at tables out there so that you can kind of just look around and see who you talk to them a little bit, get to know them a little bit, and kind of make some decisions so when you come back in October, you know where to go.
That's right.
All right? So, Baltimore, you want to pray us out?
Absolutely.
All right.
So, Father, we just thank you so much, Father. We thank you for this time. Father, we thank you for the ability to be able to come into your presence, Lord, and bring the model that you established in the very beginning for marriage, Father. So we just thank you for every single individual in this place. That this year, Father, is a time of growth, a time of transparency, a time of renewal, refreshing, encouraging. Father, I thank you that your Spirit is not only moving in here, but that it moves with them everywhere they go. That every single day they wake up and every single time they go to bed, Father, they are acknowledging each other, that you have designed and created them the way they are, but that they are growing in you, Father, so they become a better representation of you. So, Father, I thank you tonight for everyone that is here, that we have a great time, that we were able to connect with each other, Lord, and grow our marriages. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Let's eat.